The hands behind the baton. For 2 decades, she's led the Virginia Symphony. Tonight, a conversation with music director and conductor Maestro JoAnn Falletta. This is What Matters. Good evening, I'm Cathy Lewis. Last month, Hampton Roads came together for an event that for its style and sophistication could have taken place in the Big Apple or LA. It was the 20th anniversary celebration of JoAnn Falletta's tenure at the baton for the Virginia Symphony. Falletta is the maestro, and she splits her time between Hampton Roads and the Philharmonic in Buffalo, New York. We won't ask her to pick which she likes better, as I suspect that both areas wouldn't have her if it weren't for the other. In her time with Virginia Symphony, JoAnn Falletta has gone from rising star to a firm position in the night sky of the world's leading conductors. Another woman of many talents is Kim Wadsworth, who through her makeup magic makes us look much better than we ever deserve to here on WHRO TV. Well, in honor of her friend JoAnn Falletta's 20th anniversary, Kim tried her hand at a video tribute. And I think you'll agree that her first effort deserves its own bravos.
The heart of genius is love, love, love.
Visionary.
Enthusiastic.
Boundless.
Poised.
She's always looking forward.
Energetic.
Beauty and elegance of music.
Humble.
It's very warm-hearted and kind.
Gifted.
Dynamism and confidence.
Very loving.
Inspiration.
Incredibly compassionate as an individual.
With JoAnn, I think that's what she really brings to our performances. There's a love of the music, a love of the musicians, a love of our audience that everyone feels.
Whenever you conduct a search, you have so many people apply, and then you narrow it down to a handful of folks who we brought in to conduct the orchestra.
Well, it was the year that the finalists were doing their final concerts for the local audience, and I met JoAnn backstage, and I said, I hope you get the job. And she did get the job, and it's been a wonderful 20 years ever since.
JoAnn just soared from the first, but particularly when she came back for another appearance. And she seemed to understand the situation that we didn't have an unlimited budget, but we had great will to see the symphony succeed.
I remember when we did sign JoAnn, we were all extremely happy. Not only because she's so talented and capable, but at that time, Patsy Carpenter and I were very smug because we'd hired a woman, and only one of 2 women in the whole United States at that time. So it was a real feather in our cap.
You would have more luck striking gold in the Yukon tomorrow than you would to find another conductor that's comparable to JoAnn Falletta.
She came on board and she nurtured us. She built us up. She challenged us musically, which was wonderful, but she also nurtured our musical soul.
I think I react to most is the expression we see on her face. She's able to communicate the emotional content of the music. I mean, she's not doing it in a choreographed kind of way like some conductors sort of plan ahead what they're going to do, how they're going to look to the audience. This is all coming straight from her heart. And it's very infectious.
Realizing that in order to have wonderful music played, you have to be sure that your musicians feel good about themselves and feel good about what they are doing. And she is a master of that. She encourages.
She has become our lifeline. When she comes on the podium, there's a global sigh in the orchestra. Ah, JoAnn's back.
She's very fluid, and she allows us the freedom to have our own voice as we're playing.
She's always intuitively flowing with the present moment when she conducts.
I think JoAnn has this great way of finding a balance when she's doing the programming each season, of finding works that are challenging and new to the orchestra so that they can continue to grow.
One of the things that is magical, I think, is she's able to draw all the musicians into what she is feeling at the time when she's conducting.
She has a great sort of Zen-like composure. She makes classical music, whether it's older music or contemporary music, comfortable for the audiences. She also brings a great interpretive gift. Her pieces, they change with her on the podium, and so to me that's like the ultimate artistry.
JoAnn Falletta's commitment to new music has been outstanding over the course of her career. She's really stuck to her principles, and she's been a fantastic advocate of new music and has supported a real variety of composers, I've noticed, different generations and different territories. And she's obviously got her ear to the ground, great knowledge of music in general, and a real idea of what's happening in new music.
Hampton Roads overall is so rich with culture that I think that she's been part of building that richness, that cultural growth. JoAnn finds such joy and passion in all of the art forms and the idea that art education can change the life of every single person in the community.
And it is 20 years, and that's really unheard of for a musical director to have been with one orchestra for 20 years, and we want her to stay for another 20.
She is so enthusiastic and energetic and such a promoter of the orchestra.
She produces wonderful music, and she brings out the very best in the orchestra. So there is something very magical about JoAnn.
The guitar speaks of a more beautiful and quiet and peaceful world. And I think that's JoAnn's address. I think that being a guitarist causes her to always be in this special, centered, thoughtful space.
JoAnn is a very inclusionary, compassionate person. For her, it's all about the music, and it's all about the musicians. And I think that always shows in how she does her rehearsal technique and just her whole approach to music.
We want to share this music that we love so much with our audience. And that's what's kept it very thrilling for me all of these years, is to see that evolve, to see that grow, and to see us as an organization, all of us, the musicians, the family around us, our volunteers, our staff, our board, want this organization to flourish and be the jewel that it is in Hampton Roads. So it's about the music, and maybe even more than that, it's about the musicians, because they're at the heart of our organization. They are the people who make this come alive. By the sound of this orchestra, by their approach, by their musicianship, I've learned about music from them. So that wherever I go, I hear our woodwinds playing, I hear the sound of our string section, our brass, our percussion, because they crystallize for me what music is about. This 20 years with the Virginia Symphony has been about them, about my relationship with them, about us discovering music together, about us always striving to be better.
It is an extraordinary, extraordinary production. Our thanks to Kim Wadsworth and the good folks at Studio Center for producing a beautiful, beautiful work. Those of us in this business aren't quite sure how they got the music to match up to the conducting, but we're pretty impressed. JoAnn Falletta, we're so impressed with you as well, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Cathy. I'm delighted to be here.
I watched your face while you were watching that piece, because you saw it for the first time at this lovely celebratory event a couple of weeks ago, which was set in time from a costuming perspective back when the symphony got its start.
That's right. It was a brilliant idea. Andrea McClellan had this idea of setting it in the 20s when the symphony began, and because I'd been here 20 years, and it was so glamorous. But I did see Kim's fantastic gift, you know, with the 600 other people. So it was a little overwhelming for me.
How did you? I mean, it's a beautiful piece. So then you have to sort of, I suppose, stand up and say something after that, which must have been a great challenge.
Not immediately afterwards, but later in the evening. But it means a great deal to me.
Yeah.
Kim and I have been friends really since high school.
That's great. That's right, because you all were in New York together.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Where it all got started, as they say. 20 years. It doesn't seem quite like it's been 20 years. And you said that in the piece.
You know, the funny thing is, in some ways it seems to have gone by in a flash, but in other ways I feel like I've lived in Hampton Roads, I've lived in Norfolk all my life. I mean, that's the kind of community it's been for me. It's been a place where I feel I've grown up here.
Yeah.
I feel I've learned everything I needed to learn about music, or you know, that I didn't learn in school, I learned here with these musicians in this community. So I feel grounded here. I feel like so much of who I am as a conductor is because of having this relationship with the Virginia Symphony and with this extended community.
And I know in college you started out studying guitar, and it's still obviously a great passion for you, but somewhere along the lines you decided that conducting was more what you wanted to do. Is that right?
Well, I fell in love with conducting at a very young age, but I couldn't give up the guitar. And that's personal, you know, that's something you hold it and you play it, and it's you make music, you actually create music. But when I started to conduct more and more, I had to make a choice, and I do more conducting now. But I keep the guitar, and for me it's something very special.
Sure.
But to be in the middle of a team like the orchestra, Cathy, there's nothing like that. These people are extraordinary artists. There are 80 of them around me, 85, 100 of them around me. The collective talent, the collective brain activity. It's daunting. I mean, to be in the middle of that and to have us all working on a piece that's like a treasure from the past or something new that's just been written, there's nothing like that.
You know, I love the idea that the composer puts the music on the page, but then each different conductor, each different symphony gets to sort of put their own mark on it. And there was that marvelous shot in the videotape where this black and white photo gets infused with color. And I thought that was such a beautiful image of that.
Well, that's a beautiful thing to say. That's what happens. Something that is black and white notes on a page somehow becomes Technicolor when the orchestra plays it. And every orchestra plays it in a different way. It's different. It comes to life. It's like reading a play and then seeing it acted out. And of course the Virginia Symphony puts their own personality into it, who they are as individual musicians, what our woodwinds sound like, what our strings, how they play together. All of that makes it unique. So it's an amazing experience to hear them live.
And so you split your time to some extent between here and Buffalo. And,
that's right.
And so how does that work? I mean, do you travel weekly, monthly? I mean, how does that?
I travel every week, really, and Monday is our day off. In the orchestra world, Monday is the one day off. So Monday I'm either going to Buffalo or coming back to Norfolk. And I have to tell you, I mean, for 6 months of the year, coming back to Norfolk from the winter is so beautiful.
Because we've complained about it a lot this winter, but I suppose that it's all in your perspective.
Yes, I mean, because we still have, you know, in April and May we can still have snow in Buffalo. So to come back to Virginia on those weeks in April and May, it's just the most uplifting thing to see the flowers, see the azaleas. But you know, more to learn from both orchestras and to be inspired by these musicians.
And you're also conducting a lot around the world now, guest conducting.
I do guest conduct a lot too.
What is that experience like to go in and work with musicians that you haven't worked with? You don't sort of have this relationship.
It's very different because you have 1 week with them. Right. And you have to learn all about them in 1 week, even if you don't know their names. You have to learn how they play, and you have to really become very close to them for that period. And it's just about making music, listening, and they're watching and listening to you, and you have an incredibly close relationship, even as strangers. It's a very unusual relationship, and you don't have to worry about the long-range health of the organization. So it's like going on a beautiful date.
That is nice,
a date,
isn't it?
and you just have a good time and wonderful music making. But in the end, Cathy, I have to say, what is truly satisfying is for me to look at where the Virginia Symphony is in Hampton Roads now, and how the cultural life of Hampton Roads has been so enriched by these musicians, and to say, okay, that's what it's about, changing your community, bringing this to your community as a gift, and having it there for everyone, from young people through seniors.
It occurs to me that I just, and we often talk about this, but I just don't think people necessarily take on board the disproportionate number of high-quality arts organizations we have for the size that we are. Absolutely. We have, if you put it on a graph, we probably have more than our fair share.
Much more. I mean, it's become a cultural center, and I think that's happened only in the last maybe 15 years, that we've begun to identify ourselves as a cultural center, and people are taking advantage of that. And it shows what I've always believed in, that the more culture there is, the more there is to do, the more interest there is, the more appetite, the more excitement about orchestra and opera and ballet and theater and all the special things that the Arts Festival, for instance, brings to the region. People are alive and they're interested in it.
And that's not coincident, is it? The idea that it's 15 years that the Virginia Arts Festival has been here, and one of your good colleagues in the symphony, Rob Cross, came to you and just said, hey, I have this, I guess, this crazy idea. Or you must have said, that's a crazy idea.
I did, but he's so brilliant. I mean, Rob did it, Rob believed in it, and the beautiful thing about Rob is that he, in making this international, bringing guest artists from all over the world, he's kept at the core who's here full-time, who are our local organizations. The Virginia Symphony has been a very important part, right at the center of what the Arts Festival does. Right. And that is not the case in every festival. So I think that for Rob, that shows a great deal of love for the symphony and for the organizations that are here all the time.
Yeah. Are here all the time is a great phrase to begin talking about the business of symphonies, because there are a lot of communities where they aren't there all the time and they've gone away, and it has to be a tremendous sadness. There have been bumps in the road for Virginia Symphony, economically, of course, and you are facing, I think, what a lot of arts organizations are facing, which is the graying of the audience and the challenge to build new audience, and the challenge to remain solvent and sound in these very challenging economic times. So you, I guess, would work with the executive director and the budget folks at the symphony to some extent. What's that relationship like?
You know, it's a critical one, and it's a very close relationship, because while I'm responsible for the artistic health, Eric Bornstein and the board is responsible for keeping the organization financially healthy so that we can be artistically excellent. We can't really do one without the other. And if we were not at a high artistic level, there would be no symphony to really care about. There wouldn't be a product. So there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of sharing, there's a lot of I would say compromise, but compromise in the best sense of how can we make everything work? How can we do what we want artistically and still make sure that we're not putting the symphony in any jeopardy?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very challenging for so many arts organizations, and my sense is, you know, we are told the economy is coming out of it, but my sense is there are a number of individuals and organizations that are sort of have enough just to hang on just a little bit longer. And fortunately, I think for the symphony, the community has really stepped forward and said, this is something we care about.
It's true, and they love the orchestra. I have to say, when I'm at a concert and I hear the applause from the audience for the symphony, and I see them watching individual musicians or even running into them on the street, there's a true sense of love for what the orchestra does here. And of course we have a number of different communities, which really helps us, Cathy. It's a challenge, but it's a strength. I mean, we're traveling all the time. We have several different halls that we play series in. The musicians are in the car constantly going back from Newport News to Norfolk to Virginia Beach to Williamsburg. But we have all of those communities that we serve in their community. And that's a great strength of the Virginia Symphony.
Boy, no kidding. I remember it. I remember doing the radio show one day, and I got a call from a gentleman who was heartbroken because he had opera tickets. This was before the Ferguson Center was built. And there was a traffic jam at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. He could not get down to the opera or symphony. I can't remember which one it was. But at any rate, it was so great to have these venues so that people don't necessarily have to have that happen, because I thought that's a tremendously great pain to have tickets to something you love and not to be able to go to see it. So Carnegie Hall in 1997. Are we going again?
Oh, we are. We don't know exactly when, but you know, Cathy, you remember that was a defining point for us.
Absolutely.
In terms of the community recognizing that their orchestra could play on the stage of Carnegie Hall and get rave reviews. But more important for us, I think for the musicians and for me, to realize we could do it.
Yeah.
You know, we followed the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Which, by the way, did not get such rave reviews.
No, that's true. And we triumphed, and I'll never forget that night. I'll never forget the look on the musicians' faces. I'll never forget the repertoire we played. It's amazing to think that April 15, 1997 will just be for us always a kind of sacred day.
Oh, no kidding. So how long ago was that? 18, no, how many years ago was that? Because this is April 15th.
Right, so that's...
this is the anniversary of Carnegie
Hall. This is the anniversary of Carnegie Hall.
How about
14 years?
I wish I could tell you that we planned it that way. We did not.
This is the anniversary, and I think there's not a single musician in the Virginia Symphony that will ever forget that. And we had about 1,000 people from Hampton Roads alone up there with us.
Isn't that great?
It's amazing.
What a remarkable thing. You know, the other thing I wanted to ask you about is this. I know that you're serving on the National Council for the Arts and Advisory Board for the National Endowment for the Arts. As you look at this fiscal situation the country's in and the stress and pressure that arts organizations are under, I wonder what those conversations are like these days.
You know, they're difficult, but I think that sometimes what people don't realize is that the arts, for a very limited amount of money, give so much to the community. There are people who still feel that arts are frills and extras, but I think more and more we're beginning, and sometimes a crisis does this, we're beginning to realize that at the core of who we are the arts. We don't, when we look at ancient civilizations, we don't remember their business plans. We don't remember their financial successes. We still have their art. That's what we know about them. That's what we treasure about them. That's who they are to us thousands of years later. That's who we are. And I think more and more people are realizing, you know, no matter what happens, that's a kind of a wave, you know, and things go and get better and worse, but the arts are always how we need to express ourselves and how we need to share that with other people.
That's interesting, because one of the very familiar refrains we hear it, as you probably are aware, have been through a very interesting time here with regard to the future of public broadcasting funding, and one of the things that, one of the arguments is it's not a core function of government. And I suppose if that's the yardstick, then you could make the same claim about a lot of things, about museums and arts and arts organizations and other entities that receive some form of government funding. That's a very interesting, I mean, how do you answer that?
But see, that's our perspective. That's our kind of 21st century perspective. When we look at other civilizations, even today, and especially of the past, at the core of their civilization were arts and religion. That was who they were. Everything else was worked around that. So maybe we've just got our priorities a little bit kind of out of balance. And again, sometimes I think when we are in financial crises, people tend to realize, okay, what's really important?
What's really important? You
know, what makes me understand myself and my relationship to the rest of the world? And especially in the kind of world we live in. If there's a chance we can understand each other, it's through the arts.
Well, JoAnn Falletta, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's been a wonderful conversation. I wish we had more time.
No, me too, Cathy. Thank you so much.
Well, I tell you, congratulations on 20 years. You are such a treasure in this community, and it's been wonderful to help celebrate those 20 years with you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And I'll be back in just a moment with a final thought. Well, if March was a month to celebrate JoAnn Falletta, then April is a month for another extraordinary musical event, and you still have time to get a front row seat. It's a world premiere production called Rappahannock County. It premiered on Tuesday, the same day 150 years ago that Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter. It's a co-venture commissioned by the Virginia Arts Festival and Virginia Opera. A number of other companies are involved as well, the University of Richmond, the University of Texas, and it features original songs and audio visuals of diaries, letters, and personal accounts of the Civil War on all sorts of Virginians, black and white, rich and poor, soldiers, nurses, widows, and survivors. It's an extraordinary production. Now, in September, the production heads to the Maudlin Center in Richmond and then to the Texas Performing Arts Center in Austin, but you still have time to get tickets for the final Hampton Roads performances this weekend by logging on to Ticketmaster.com or by dialing 866-OPERA-VA. And they have 5 performers creating 30 characters on stage. It's going to be extraordinary. Well, to watch this program again or any of our past broadcasts, just visit our website. That's whatmatters.tv, and that's where you'll find any number of ways to get in touch with us. You can also join us as a fan on Facebook and on the radio. That's something we didn't have 20 years ago. On the radio for more local talk. I hope you'll join us for Hearsay on 89.5 WHRV FM. We are live each weekday at noon, and we will take your calls. Thanks again for watching. I'm Cathy Lewis, and we will leave you tonight with the sounds of the symphony in the hands of Maestro JoAnn Falletta. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time for another look at what matters.